I've made the money and lost it 3 times. I came up here in 10 years, had 3 major busts, and almost got murdered 3 times in 10 years. I had a guy in town who's dealt fuel to all the indoor people, and he's been here his whole life. He's straight. He said, you know, I know everybody in Menville. And he goes, I don't know anybody that's worked harder than you and has less to show for it than I've ever seen in my life. He said, and I said, yeah, but I got my stories. Get people maybe getting 100,000 pounds of a tie load, and then you'd have 4 people getting 25,000 pounds, and that'd break down to 4 or 5 getting 4 or 5,000 pounds, and that'd break down to 4 or 5 getting 1,000 pounds. I was one of those guys. I was on the level of like a 1,000-pound guy because I was only, 18, 19, 20 years old. I watched that evolve into, 2 million pounds of tie being brought into the Bay Area from the late 70s into the early 80s. All the hash loads coming in. It was very structured. You had the Jewish people doing their loads, and you had the Italians, and you had the hippie kids from Florida and all those guys. And it was really easy. Everybody got their loads. Nobody had any fights. Everybody, you got it for 13. You sold it for 14 or 15. You made your 200 grand. No fights, no guns, no problems. You didn't jump connections. You didn't do anything wrong. That went on till the early 80s, and a guy came into my place, one of the guys I worked with, one of the other lines, and he showed me this bud that ended up getting known as the Chronic, the Grease, and the Magic. It was the first super pod. And he showed it to me, and the top of the line bud was going for $2,000 a pound. They were selling that for $4. And I told him he was out of his mind when he wanted a third of my crop for 2 years and I couldn't cut a clone. And he said, you see this bud? He said, you see those lights in Safeway and those big warehouses? We're all going to be growing under those in 2 years. And all the pot's going to be off the streets, and you won't be able to get any Thai or Mexican. And you're going to only be doing this indoors under lights. I looked at him, I thought, you're out of your mind. You've actually lost your mind. I had 1,000 pounds in my backyard. I'm thinking, you're crazy. Who's going to grow under lights in rooms? And then, of course, over the next 18 months, they busted about 12 to 14 loads. They took them all out. Cocaine went from being $100 a gram to being $10, and the brothers in Oakland couldn't buy a joint, but they could get $10 grams of cocaine, and it happened exactly like he said it did. And it would, and then I had to go back and beg for that clone and start over and give him a third of my crop for 2 years and not cut a clone. Of course we did, and we gave it to everybody. He came up here and just dusted this whole Northern California with those clones, and that became the basis for a lot of the breeding projects in the early 80s. And so people say, when did indoor start? I can tell you when it started. Early 90s, got out of jail. Actually was almost looking at a federal crime because I had the only Thai and Mexican in the country at the time. Feds got it, thought they'd get fingerprints, never happened. I got busted down from, looking at 10, 15 years to 6 months. I then came out here out of jail and started over. Hogtied in a bathtub, almost murdered by some crazy bikers up here. Fought them for years to get rid of them up here. Mad Mike, the infamous Mad Mike, fought the Mercers to the toe, 8 days of terror with those guys. I've been battling some badasses up here for years. I came up here and the Shishi people went to Willits and Ukiah. The hippie types went to Garberville. The hardcores went here because this was Rednecks and it was hardcore growers. When I came up here, I didn't realize that I was going to be battling with all those people for 10 years. Ended up almost killing me several times. All those years of battling, all the warriors and all the outlaws that I did that with, man, I have nothing but gratitude and thanks and pride in being one of those people to do that. And I look at what it did to all of us, and all of us at my age want the end. Because we want to come out, we don't want to be the black sheep anymore. Being an outlaw like that isn't fun. It's not easy. It's not something that you enjoy. It's not what you see in the movies. It's terror and trauma. And I'm over it. And so most of the people my age. So we'd like to see this end so we can just relax. About 2003, and some people came and asked me if I would sponsor the Emerald Cup. We started talking about doing the Emerald Cup, and it was all gangster back then. It was kind of like, okay, there were no rules. We weren't dealing with law enforcement. There was nothing going on. And I was like, you know what? Everybody else has county fairs and gets to go do these things and celebrate cannabis, and we're just going to do it. We ended up with a couple dozen strains, a couple hundred people here, had a great party, and we pulled it off. We didn't get arrested. It was an amazing moment, kind of crossing over that line. I'm like, give it to them. Give them the seeds, give them the information, get it out there, because we need that. That's what the Emerald Cup's all about, because what we really need is this whole country healthy and this planet healthy, and we need all the cannabis we can to get out there for people in the best effective way.